My name is Jesse Milestone, and you are welcome, Geeks and Gamers, for bringing you hair that is better than Jeremy's once a week. I want to talk to you today about something that's been bothering me ever since they announced the time gap between Star Wars Episodes 8 and Episode 9. So we're doing a whole year between those films, and that really irked me, and I couldn't figure out why. I mean, that's a totally normal amount of time to have passed between Star Wars films, so why is this a problem? And then it dawned on me. Rian Johnson has sunk Episode 9 before it gets off the ground, and he has done that through his utter inability to handle the passage of time and his inability to handle size, but we'll get to that in a minute. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that The Last Jedi picks up a mere minutes after The Force Awakens ends, right? And this is a problem because this is your second movement of the trilogy. And if you look back at the Star Wars trilogies, or any trilogy really, the second installment is supposed to be this big, action-packed piece that moves everything forwards towards its ultimate conclusion, right? That brings your heroes one step closer to their final showdown against the bad guys, that gives your hero time to grow and season and become the savior that you need him or her to be. Except that we don't need to see that because Rey is already perfect. So obviously, what am I thinking? That would have just been wasted time. But anyway, so the problem here is that, again, your second installment is supposed to be action-packed beginning to end, right? And The Last Jedi is shockingly devoid of action. With the exception of the beginning, the ending, one chase scene on Cantabite, and the throne room battle, which really is only there so that Rey and Kylo Ren can wave their lightsabers around. It serves no other purpose. And aside from these 4 moments in a 2.5-hour film, there is virtually no action whatsoever. No wonder it was so flipping boring. And I mean, you're talking again, you're starting immediately after the ending of the movie previously. This is like if Empire Strikes Back was about the evacuation of Yavin 4 once the Imperial forces discovered where the Rebel base was. If the entire movie was just them evacuating Yavin, nothing in the Empire, none of those great moments and events that bring us closer to the final showdown, no time to start, even thinking about reconstructing a Death Star that's partially finished by the time Return to the Jedi starts. That stuff is a marathon away. No, we just left Yavin, Luke gets trained as a Jedi in 2 days, and basically Lando dances around in a monkey suit for half an hour for no apparent reason. And that's what you're talking about. That's the narrow scope of The Last Jedi. Instead of writing our way forwards in this trilogy, what we've done is essentially what Rian Johnson did is wrote an epilogue to The Force Awakens. He took the story started in there and then just brought it along to a conclusion, wrapped it up with a neat little bow, and now we don't have to talk about it anymore. So that's a serious issue in terms of your writing, in terms of your understanding of the passage of time on an epic tale, in a massive wartime tale like this. These things don't start and end in the matter of a month or a week. These things take years, which is why the original Star Wars trilogy and the prequels have years between point A and point B, to watch our characters grow and season and mature, and to watch our plot move along into its ultimate conclusion. So the other giant difficulty here is that this movie, again, it can't even move us forwards because it only lasts, if you're being generous, 36 hours. 36 hours! That's nothing. We don't have time to get the sense that time is passing, to get the sense that things are moving along, because we're basically there for every minute of everything that happens. And now, there's a lot of debate over how many days the previous Star Wars movies have lasted, and there's a reason for this. The reason is that we don't see every moment that time passes, but we get a sense that it does. Even when a ship jumps to hyperspace, it's not an instantaneous jump from point A to point B. There's time spent in hyperspace. There's downtime getting from one place to the next on a ship, and we don't know how much time that is, so it's sort of up to our imagination. We're living in this vast, massive galaxy. We don't know how much time it's going to take to get from one star system to the next, so we can imagine as much as we want in there. We can put as much time and as much space in there, right? We only tune in for the moments of action, for the important moments of this. We don't need to see every second of Luke talking to R2-D2 and pissing in a bottle on his way to Dagobah. We don't need to see that. Now, jump into The Last Jedi, right? Once again, you have a 36-hour space chase, which is a really long chase, which is why it's a really slow, boring chase, but we've covered that ground before, right? So then this is coming onto my issue with space. As I said, Rian Johnson's problem with space is you have this going on in 36 hours, and unless Rey fell into a time vortex at the end of The Force Awakens, she essentially teleports out to this mysterious, remote planet that Luke is hiding out on, because she's there for about 36 hours. So she basically teleported from one place to the next, and then teleports back just as conveniently straight back into the action, which is now in a completely different place from the place she left. We don't know how much further or closer that might be from Luke's little planet. So that's an issue. And then once again, of course, you have Finn and Rose. Conveniently, Canto Bight happens to be just right next door, because they got to zip over there, do all that nonsense, get imprisoned, get out, whatever, in less than 18 hours. Because by the time they leave, we've already started our slowest crud space chase. So now, I'm not saying that every moment has to be accounted for, that the timelines all have to sync up perfectly, right? The questions over Empire Strikes Back show us that that's not a necessary thing in Star Wars. But what we're losing here now is we're losing the sense of the passage of time, and we're losing the sense of the size of the galaxy. Now everything feels just crumpled in on top of each other, right? All these planets seem impossibly close. Traveling through space seems ridiculously easy, and we lose the vastness and the majesty of the Star Wars galaxy. So we've collapsed it in on itself. We've turned our attention in such this narrow way, again, by having The Force Awakens just travel directly into The Last Jedi. Now our focus, size-wise and time-wise, is so narrow that it seems an impossible task now to expand it back up into the next film, right? So here's the issue now. You can write a trilogy. You can totally write a trilogy that doesn't have time jumps between films. But if you're going to cut the time jump out of one film and not the others, it's got to be between the second and the third, because your second movement moves right into the climax of your third movement. Now we have these two narratives that just pile on top of each other, and then this long break, this long inhalation, exhalation, and now we're starting from the ground up to build into episode 9, to build into what's going to have to be the conclusion, the showdown against the Resistance. So obviously you do need a passage of time here. Rian Johnson wrote his story in a way that forces that passage of time, that creates that downtime, that creates that backpedaling, right? Because there's no way, even if episode 9 takes place in the span of a month, that we could pick it up where The Last Jedi leaves off. We could build back the Resistance that fits on the Millennium Falcon into something that could actually topple the First Order. There's no way we do that in the span of episode 9 without this massive jump. So now what we're losing here, though, is we're losing pivotal moments in the plot that we're going to have to play catch up on. When you look at the original trilogy, once again, between A New Hope and Empire, we don't need to see what's happening there. We tune back in for the pivotal moments, for Luke getting trained, for him facing Darth Vader, for Han and Leia bonding in their relationship, for them meeting up with Lando, who becomes, of course, pivotal in the film, right? We don't need to see the friends plotting on how they're going to save Han in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. We know that's happening. We don't need to see them sitting around a table brainstorming, right? Or putting the little machinery in place for it. In fact, the fun part is as we jump in and we see how they've set this up in their own time, right? But when you look at what's happening between 8 and 9, that action of building up the Resistance, of how they're getting out of this impossible situation, how they're actually gonna muster their forces and regroup, that's all interesting stuff that now we're missing, that now we're being left out on. We're missing out on some key character moments. We're not going to know the immediate fallout of Finn and Rose's kiss. We're not even going to see Rey and Rose meet for the first time, unless of course she happens to just be in a coma for the next year, which I mean is certainly possible, but completely idiotic. So we're missing out on these pivotal character moments of Rey and Finn's reunion and what happens there between the two of them over the next year. We're missing these key developmental moments between characters. We're missing these key plot moments of how we move from A to B, and no amount of opening crawl at the beginning of 9 is going to satisfactorily fill us in. So now you're starting this massive deficit in this hole that 9 has to claw itself out of, which already is going to be a Herculean effort. It would take nothing short of a miracle to build a film that is a satisfactory conclusion to the events that we've had set up so far. And part of that is because Rian Johnson concluded his film already. He concluded his film. He left it in the dust. He said, I don't care what happens next. He obviously doesn't understand how to be a team player or how to write a film that works as a piece in a series and doesn't just exist as a reason for him to stroke his ego every night, right? So now we're stuck with a massive conundrum with all of these problems that this movie, episode 9, is going to need to untangle before it even can get to work on building its way towards its conclusion. So because of Rian Johnson's inability to understand storytelling, he has taken this movie and dropped it straight in the toilet, and having nothing to do with the writing of it himself, he has sunk this darn film before it even got started. And I will never not be angry about this. So there you have it, guys. Hope you like what you hear. If you do, you can always find me more on Mindless Entertainment. And I'll be back next week with more things to yell about.